Coming up on Your Week.
Today I'm identifying houses of worship, churches, synagogue, and mosques as essential places that provide essential services.
President Trump serves up an order to the states to reopen places of worship. Plus,
I am excited that I get to graduate today.
a high school in Nevada gets creative in holding a graduation ceremony for the class of 2020. Plus, the beaches are open just in time for Memorial Day. All this and more on Your Week. Hello, this is Your Week, and I'm your host, Eddie McCoven. Our top story, faith and freedom reign supreme in this nation, and the chief executive of this constitutional republic made that clear this week. During a briefing at the White House Friday, President Trump said the nation's houses of worship are essential and should reopen immediately.
Some governors have deemed liquor stores and abortion clinics as essential, but have left out churches and other houses of worship. It's not right. I call upon governors to allow our churches and places of worship to open right now. The governors need to do the right thing and allow these very important, essential places of faith to open right now for this weekend. If they don't do it, I will override the governors.
Many have applauded the president's decision as a move of common sense. Jeremy Dice, special counsel with First Liberty.
We've got a president who has said, no, the church is in fact essential. And if you can go to Target or Home Depot and safely socially distance and shop at the same time, certainly you should be able to do the same thing inside your house of worship.
The president's announcement comes on the heels of a Department of Justice letter sent to California Governor Gavin Newsom, pushing him to give more consideration to reopening houses of worship in the state. Lawsuits have also been filed alleging a violation of the First Amendment and unfair treatment of churches by their respective states. While some churches appreciate the president's move on the matter, faith leaders like Dan Carroll, the pastor at Water of Life Community Church in Fontana, California, say they were intent on solving the issue locally.
We don't want to break the law. We're prepared to go ahead no matter what President Trump had said or Governor Newsom, because we felt like we've been very patient, we've been very diligent, and we needed to open up and take care of our people.
Over 1,000 churches in California had signaled their intent to open on Pentecost Sunday, May 31st, despite what orders may still be in place at the time. So the president essentially took the decision out of the state's hands on this one. Now, one could argue this is a states' rights issue, and the federal government, moreover, the president, doesn't have a right to open or close churches in the states. And the whole issue of overriding governors, as he said, I'm not sure he has the authority to do just that, but states do not have the authority to abridge the enumerated rights protected at the federal level. So the First Amendment is really not a state issue to begin with. It's always been a federal issue. Now, the three bishops of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in California, three bishops there in California, they issued a statement against President Trump's call to reopen churches, saying they were going to instead wait for the science and data to make it clear when safe to do so. The head of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, Bishop Elizabeth Eaton, took to Twitter Friday saying the president's call to return to in-person worship is reckless, divisive, and dangerous, and labeled it cynical pandering to a vulnerable base. Okay, no, Bishop Eaton, it's not reckless. There are plans. The CDC has released guidance on the matter. Divisive? I think not. Unless you're a Trump hater, then I can see why you would call it as such. Dangerous? Well, if it's dangerous, then why have you allowed your congregations to stay open during flu season? Well, what the president has done here is put the states on notice, essentially saying you can't stop the free exercise of worship, even if that worship includes in-person gatherings. He's removed the decisions from the state and county governments and put it in the hands of individual congregations and individual members, which is where it should be. Now, just because the federal government says you can do something doesn't mean you should. While plenty of people were blowing up Twitter over this, I do believe in the inherent good in people, and I believe that people, given individual liberty, will take the necessary personal responsibility. If you live in Modoc County, California, where they have 0 cases of the virus, then I say yes, go ahead, resume church services and life as normal. If you're in Los Angeles County, maybe you should wait a little bit or proceed with extreme caution, i.e. sanitation, social distancing, limiting the amount of attendees of in-person worship. And just because a church reopens doesn't mean everyone is going to come back. The individual churches have the right to decide when to reopen, and of course, by that same measure, the individual members have the right to decide when to come back. Speaking of California, Governor Gavin Newsom didn't really comment on the president's call to reopen houses of worship immediately, but he said he'll issue guidance next week.
We look forward to churches reopening in a safe and responsible manner. And we have guidelines that we anticipated completing on Monday, and we're on track to do just that. We appreciate the CDC is apparently going to be providing today, we're told, some recommendations. We'll take a look at those, but we haven't waited around for the federal administration's recommendations in this space. We take the issue very, very seriously and to heart, and we have been very aggressive in trying to put together guidelines that will do justice to people's health and their fundamental need and desire to practice their faith.
Of course, Monday is a holiday, so I'm not expecting anything from the governor until about Wednesday at the least. Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, however, says churches in his state can't reopen fully just yet.
Well, we're going to continue to operate on the basis of science and data, and I'm as anxious as anybody to make sure that our churches, our mosques, our synagogues open back to where they were before COVID-19 came along. We're gradually moving in that direction, but there's no doubt the most important thing is we do not want parishioners to get ill because their faith leaders bring them together. We hope that faith leaders will continue to do as the vast majority of them have done, which is to worship sometimes online, sometimes in other capacities, as we've talked about, outdoor and drive-in.
Meantime, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has issued a new order allowing churches to begin to reopen beginning next week, just in time for Pentecost Sunday. Minnesota churches, however, will have a cap at 250 persons in attendance or 25% of their building's capacity. In our state watch, it's graduation season, and high school seniors across the nation were robbed of this important part of their lives, and, well, so were college students because of all of the restrictions in place and, of course, the stay-at-home orders as a part of this pandemic. While some schools held an online ceremony and others just postponed the events or canceled them altogether, one high school in Nevada got creative. Students at Faith Lutheran High School in Las Vegas got to have their ceremony at a racetrack. Students donned their caps and gowns and rode in cars with their families to receive their diplomas and then took a victory lap. Students were also able to hear the class address via radio. Students at the private Christian school say they were excited to have their graduation experience.
Well, I know that some schools just aren't having a graduation or it's online. We were worried for a while it was going to be postponed or online, but I feel like this was a very cool substitution. I just think it's really cool that our school went the extra step to come here live and make it work.
Not everybody gets to ride around the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, so I'm super excited. Guys, we did it. We're done. I'm so proud of all of us. We really worked our tails off this entire year, and even though this pandemic seems to want to get us down, we know that we're better than this and we're going to rise stronger.
Congratulations to those at Faith Lutheran High School, and congratulations to all graduates in the class of 2020. It's Memorial Day weekend, and of course, what do? We usually go to the beach. The holiday weekend is long known as the unofficial yet official start to the summer. And many beaches around the country, including California, are open for people to enjoy the warm, sunny weather, which is good for the body and the soul. But as with many beaches in California, Huntington Beach Fire Department Lieutenant Claude Panis says the beach is for active use only at this time.
Right now we're in active recreation only, which means if you come to the beach, we don't allow any sunbathing. You can't lay out on the beach. You have to be engaged in walking, running, swimming, surfing, anything where you're moving. But actual sunbathing or using the fire rings right now is prohibited. So it's active use only on the beach.
Huntington Beach police say they are expecting big crowds this weekend, and officers will be out in full force to enforce social distancing and other restrictions. And speaking of enforcement, the city of Big Bear Lake, California, has told the state it is no longer enforcing any of the stay-at-home orders, but advised residents and business owners to act accordingly and at their own risk. This week in U.S. history, May 17th, 1954, the United States Supreme Court hands down a landmark decision in the case of Brown versus Board of Education, ruling segregation in public schools as unconstitutional. May 18th, 1980, the long quiet Mount St. Helens in Washington state erupts, leading to the deaths of 57 people, making it one of the most deadliest and economically destructive volcanic eruptions in U.S. history. May 19th, 1967, the U.S., Great Britain, and the Soviet Union ratified a treaty to ban nuclear weapons in space. May 20th, 1873, California businessman Levi Strauss and Nevada garment maker Jacob Davis receive a patent for work pants reinforced with metal rivets, also known as blue jeans. May 21st, 1881, humanitarian relief organization the American Red Cross is founded by battlefield nurse Clara Barton in Washington, D.C. May 22nd, 1843, 1,000 pioneers head west from Missouri on the Oregon Trail as a part of the Great Emigration. And May 23rd, 1934, it was the end of the line for notorious criminals Bonnie and Clyde, who were shot to death by Louisiana and Texas state police. Now it's time for our listener survey. Over the last 2 weeks, I asked you, should states begin to reopen their economies and relax restrictions as the pandemic looks like it's starting to subside? 100% of you said yes, allow the states to move forward. Drilling down, when asked if those decisions should be made by local leaders, 100% of you agreed county governments should make the decision, not state officials with blanket statewide orders. Now what about churches? This week's survey, do you think houses of worship should be allowed to open at this point during the pandemic? Go to eddiejmccoven.com and register your answer on the survey form. Results will be discussed next week. If you like what you've heard on the program, feel free to contact me on social media at Eddie McCoven TV or through the contact form on my website. This weekend, as you know, is Memorial Day weekend. The U.S. observes 3 military holidays, 3 of them, and there is a difference between them, and it all has to do with the uniform. One is Armed Forces Day, which just passed, observed the 3rd Saturday in May, a day to appreciate Americans currently serving in uniform. Another is Veterans Day, November 11th, a day to honor Americans who once served in uniform. And there's Memorial Day. Observed on the last Monday in May, this solemn occasion is a day to remember Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice while serving this nation, who never got to take the uniform off and return to civilian life. To the women and men of our armed forces who died in service to this country, thank you. Our hearts are forever indebted to you. Long live your memory. That's all for now. Thank you for listening. This has been Your Week. I'm Eddie McCoven, and remember, as Voltaire once wrote, judge a man by his questions rather than his answers. We'll catch you again next time, America.